Why wait to see if you'll get something you like this Valentine's Day when you can go to BlueNile.com and find something you'll love? Whether you're looking to treat yourself to a little winter sparkle or show a galentine how much you appreciate them, Blue Nile offers a wide selection of high-quality designs, expert guidance, and free 30-day returns for the ultimate peace of mind. You can even design your own jewelry. Right now, save up to 50% at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
Introducing Royal Caribbean's newest ship, Icon of the Seas, the ultimate family vacation. The ultimate 6 slides, 8 neighborhoods, 0 compromise vacation. The ultimate never done that, can't wait to do it vacation. The ultimate chillin' by a different pool every day of the week vacation. This is the Icon of vacations. Icon of the Seas, arriving in 2024. Book today. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
Again, hockey fans, are you ready to brave the wild? With me, your buddy, Paladino Joey Awajan. Well, today is episode number 38 of Brave the Wild. It is Friday, February the 5th, 2010. Of course, my mom's birthday, so happy birthday to her. Even though I'm sure she's not listening, because she's not a hockey fan. But I digress. Brave the Wild is available on thesportstuff.com and on iTunes. I thank each and every one of you always for downloading and listening to this show. And also this show has a link on minnesota.nhlfansite.com. minnesota.nhlfansite.com. Nice enough to put a pretty cool link on the left side of their website on the front page, right on the top. Pretty cool stuff. So thank you for that always. And thank you always again for listening to this show. Well, we got 3 games to review today. Not so much for news in terms of things going on, like there's no trade, there's no news like that, but we're going to generally get into all the goalie talk. I mean, it's the goalies that are going on, but it'll be kind of in game as I'm reviewing the games in this particular deal with the news with the goalies, because that's pretty much how all the news took place during the games. There's nothing to do with, and obviously they always do, but there's no real updates either. It's not like anybody's been sitting out for 7 weeks and they're progressing to a certain point. I mean, more or less, Nicholas Backstrom is sick and he'll be back when he feels better. There's your news on Nicholas Backstrom, basically. Josh Harding. Just recurring hip injury. That's been a real pain. And of course, we saw Wade Dubielewicz play this week. And we saw Kudo, or actually it's Hudo technically, play last night. In the third period, In the third period, as Harding, much more serious looking deal with that hip last night after making a big save. Unfortunately, he was already hurt, apparently, and then made the save as he was hurt worse. Fun stuff. So now we're going to get right into the game reviews as we speak. This was Saturday, January the 30th, and it was a pretty lousy game for the Wild special teams. They gave up 4 power play goals. Horrendous. Oh, and before I continue, Brave the Wild does have a Twitter account. It is twitter.com/Brave the Wild, twitter.com/Brave the Wild. All one word at the end there, of course. And, please follow that Twitter. I update it as often as I can during games, and just, of course, during the week I put out my opinions. Follow me, reply to them. Reply to some of mine. We could kind of get into a conversation where all the masses can see it. Yeah. So let's just move on here. So I'd like to get that out there for you. Well, the Wild get dominated in the face-offs. That was interesting. Finally, the Wild get dominated in the face-offs. Both teams very aggressive in the other team's zone. I mean, the puck was all over the place in this game. The Wild had 2 power play goals. The Sharks had 4. That's 6 power play goals scored in this game. 6 power play goals scored in this game. Unbelievable. Absolutely crazy. And, of course, the first 6 goals of the game, because it was a 7-goal game total, were scored on the power play. It's just unbelievable. It is unbelievable. And, of course, Owen Nolan scoring against the San Jose Sharks yet again. He's the guy that opened up the game. And then, of course, the Sharks tie it up like clockwork. About 5 minutes later, Jason Demers, Cal Clutterbuck makes us believers at the end of the first period. We're actually winning in San Jose. Of course, all 3 of those goals on the power play. Another, Todd Richards shuffles the lines a little bit. Latendresse in this particular deal, he was with Owen Nolan and Eric Belanger. The lines do tend to shuffle a little bit. Yeah, you see, excuse me, I cannot talk. Brodziak and Cal Clutterbuck and Brunette all on a line also. And that was one of the scores. It's been interesting. The lineups, or the lines have been shuffled a little bit. More or less, though, you got the first line with Brunette, Koivu, and Miettinen. The second line typically has been. Now, the center is the one that switches a little bit in there. Either Belanger or Brodziak with Latendresse and Havlet. And then the third line is Belanger or Brodziak with Clutterbuck and Nolan. So this one, I guess they moved Latendresse to the third line for this particular with Belanger and Nolan. It's just, it gets pretty interesting how it shuffles around a little bit. Clutterbuck with Brodziak and Brunette, hey, they got it done. That's what matters. But he doesn't shuffle them quite as confusingly as Jacques Lemaire did. You generally see the same guys together in the Jacques Lemaire system. It got kind of weird. He tended to shuffle the lines a little bit too much, and you wonder if that affected the chemistry late in Lemaire's career with the Wild. Yeah, how about that? How about that statement, huh? It's like take that and chew on it, huh? As now we move back to the game, and like I said on my Twitter account, as some of you that might be following, like to get more of you on there, please. I'd appreciate it, as I'm just saying that again. As the Wild's penalty kill goes from bad to awful. Remember, the penalty kill perennially was number 1 in the NHL. On occasion, it was number 2. Last year, you saw a slight decline to 2 or 3 or 4 last year at times, when it was pretty much number 1 all the time, forever, pretty much. It was even like that with the North Stars late in their run. Now it's in the upper teens, like 16th, I believe, right now. Yikes. And before you know it, if it continues on the run it was in San Jose, boy, it'll be 30th. I mean, that was pathetic. San Jose 4 of 7 on the power play. The Wild were 2 of 5. So at least the Wild power play looked okay. That is 16th. Their power play officially is 16th. Nothing special either, but hey, it worked on this particular night. That was Saturday the 30th of January. Patrick Marleau, ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you. Where did he come from? Now, he's a good player and everything. And, yeah, 2 years ago he had a down year after a couple of very good years. Had a kind of a down, mediocre 55-point season. That's mediocre for him. Last year he moved up into the upper 70s. But, my God, this guy is leading the league in goals scored. 37 goals. I believe at one point people thought he had a hat trick in this game. But that was the first goal that ended up going to Joe Pavlovsky. That was halfway through the second period, or late in the second period, when the Sharks were starting to show signs that they're going to win this game. That's when it was 3-2 San Jose. Oh, man, the Sharks dominating. I mean, it's just Patrick Marleau, man. I'm telling you, if this Sharks team doesn't win the Cup this year, they may never win the Cup. I mean, they got Minnesota Vikings syndrome in terms of just can't win in the playoffs, can't win in the postseason. The Sharks absolutely have had that cloud over their head for a long, long time. And remember how back in the old days, in the early to mid-'90s, when the San Jose Sharks first started making the playoffs, they were the opposite. They were that 8th seed that was knocking off Detroit. Detroit was the one choking always early in the postseason. So we'll see if the Sharks ever nip that in the bud and win a Stanley Cup here. Yeah, this is the year to do it because Patrick Marleau is playing out of his mind. You still have Danny Healy, Joe Thornton. You got the great defense, everything. I mean, you got some good defensemen. You even have Rod Blake. He's still playing in his old age. Nabokov's still there. I mean, you got the pieces to win a cup. This is the Sharks' year to win it. So, of course, you got the Blackhawks, the Devils now with, and I got to get into that in a second here. The Kovalchuk going to the New Jersey Devils. Diseased. Yep, very diseased.
Oh, come on!
Yeah, just not what I wanted to see. The New Jersey Devils getting Kovalchuk. I don't know. If any team was going to get that guy, I mean, obviously, number one, you hope it's the Wild, but you hope it's somebody cooler than the New Jersey Devils. You know, New Jersey Devils are one of the most boring teams. They're good, but they're boring, and I'm tired of seeing them, to be honest with you. I really am. It's always teams like the New Jersey Devils, the Sharks, who are good, but still, they always seem to get all the players. Like Danny Heatley goes to the Sharks, Joe Thornton goes to the Sharks, Rob Blake goes to the Sharks, and it's just like it never ends. Teams like that. Of course, Colorado was like that for a while. You had Detroit. Yeah, Detroit always seems to get the major names. And the New York Rangers always seem to get the major names. I mean, and they've been doing that since, what, the mid-'90s? It gets pretty old. It's like it's the same four or so teams. For a while it was Dallas, Detroit, Colorado, and New Jersey. Now it's, yeah, like I said, New Jersey still is one of them. San Jose is one of them. Detroit is still one of them, and the New York Rangers are still one of them. It's just, you pretty much knocked off the Stars and the Colorado Avalanche. It's just, yeah, it gets a little old. It really does. So, yeah, that's my last thoughts on the San Jose Sharks game. Just, yeah, the Wild were gutty in terms of they put a lot of pressure on the San Jose Sharks, but the Sharks put about a lot more on us, and they put a hurting on the Minnesota Wild. And Patrick Marleau, my goodness. He is having one hell of a year. He might have a 60-goal season. In fact, the odds are looking pretty good for that. They really are. His final notes for the game. Well, Marleau's comment, Marleau's quoting here, I just hope for the best. Said Marleau off, one off a career high set last season. He's now one off a career high set last season at this point. It was just at the right height, and I happened to get a stick on it. Now, that was one of his goals, of course. Marleau was just all over the place. Todd Richards weighs in. I liked the way the guys battled and competed. Of course, Todd Richards, a former San Jose assistant, we know that, and you thought maybe the Wild would muster a little bit more because Todd Richards might know a little bit of some of their secrets, so to speak. He said, we played hard. The first period was a tremendous pace. And I thought we outplayed them in the second period. And, yeah, they got 17 shots on goal. But, yeah, despite heading into the third period down 3-2. Yeah, 17 shots on goal for the Wild. As I mentioned, the first 6 goals were scored on power plays. That is nuts. Todd McClellan weighs in. It was a strange game, but we won, and I can't complain. We played okay, and I'm happy with that. And, of course, it's always a strange game when it's the Wild and the San Jose Sharks. And Todd McClellan and all his offensive ability, he tends to give up at times. He tends to give up leads at times. The defense isn't always up to par. But when it is up to par, the Sharks are unbeatable. They're virtually unbeatable. Final notes, Nolan had 8 goals. Has 8 goals in his last 7 games against the San Jose Sharks. That's, of course, his former team from a while ago now. And the Wild allowed a franchise high in power play goals. Yeah, 4. Oh, my God! Really, really rough business. Really rough. Not what the doctor ordered. Especially when you're going through a goalie situation right now. Not what the doctor ordered. And, of course, San Jose Sharks are not going to cure anybody's ails. This, of course, Josh Harding and his ailing hip, giving up 5 goals on 36 shots. Fun stuff. And also, one final bit, the San Jose Sharks dominated the Minnesota Wild on the faceoffs 38-22. That's pretty rare. Also, the Wild it's usually the other way around this year, as the Wild are virtual opposites of what they were under Jacques Lemaire's system. They generally lost the face-off, and they were good on special teams, and yeah, and most of their goals were scored on special teams and not in regulation. Now it's complete opposite. So now enough of my rambling. We're going to move on to the Dallas game before I go too long. Tuesday, February the 2nd against the Dallas Stars, Minnesota Wild. It's like, will they ever win in Dallas? Well, you hoped and prayed that somehow maybe they'd get lucky because Wade Dubielewicz is in the net, the former Denver Pioneer, who has a very good goalie, of course, for the Denver Pioneers. Best in the WCHA back in 02-03. He was the best player in the whole WCHA that year, the MVP of it pretty much, other than Jordan Leopold of the Wild. But Wade Dubielewicz, not much of an NHL career, a decent minor league career. And it's like, that's how far back it goes. So the Minnesota Wild have won in Dallas. 2003, March 2003. That was when those WCHA tournaments and eventually NCAA tournaments were going on. Denver Pioneers, Minnesota Gophers, blah, 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 blah. So that's pretty ironic. It's like, is it an omen that the Wild are going to end this run in Dallas? No. Nope. No, it really wasn't, unfortunately. As Wade Dubielewicz was nothing special. Marty Turco was something very special. Unfortunately, Wild losers 4-2 in this game. And the Stars made it. I mean, it got off to a boring start, but then James Neal puts it in. 22nd of the year. That's the leading goal scorer for the Wild. The leading overall scorer, of course, Brad Richards. Well, we continue here. Latendresse was hit in the face of the stick, but luckily he came back. But pretty much right as he came back on the ice, that was when Neal got his 22nd goal of the year. Unfortunately, the Dallas Stars up 1-0. And it's like, my God, what is going on? Steve Ott was all over the place. He's just a very aggressive player. Cal Clutterbuck and Steve Ott were going at it early and often, and I mean really often. They were bumping each other a little bit, got in a fight, and then Cal Clutterbuck crunches Brad Richards later on, a few minutes later, and then there you go again, Steve Ott and Cal Clutterbuck going at it big time. Unfortunately, guess who won both fights? Steve Ott. Steve Ott was able to wrestle Cal Clutterbuck to the ground and won both fights. Bummer, man. But that's how it goes. And yeah, folks, I'm going to say this right now. I mentioned it on my Twitter, and I'm going to say it again. Ladies and gentlemen, I think the new arch rival for the Minnesota Wild is the Dallas Stars. A lot of us want to say it's the Vancouver Canucks, and yeah, I hate the Canucks. I'm sure everybody that's listening cannot stand them. And, of course, both teams play a fairly similar style now, more of a grinder type of style. Well, then again, the Wild don't, or at least they won't much longer. Jacques Lemaire's gone. That grind style is going to kind of go away a little bit. But I think the Stars and the Wild hate each other even more. I remember Vancouver got pretty cheap, and we started fighting and going crazy when we finally beat those SOBs in the X last month. And we finally beat them. That was a nice 5-2 victory. But there's something about Minnesota and Dallas that's really starting to heat up. Steve Ott, the last two times in Dallas, has really gotten things interesting, man. He really has. I mean, getting in a fight with Josh Harding. Getting on Josh Harding's nerves. They went at it. And now Clutterbuck and Ott, I think they're going to be going at it for a long time. And, folks, don't be surprised if, before you know it, Derek Bugard's going to send a message to Steve Ott next time the Minnesota Wild played, because the Wild amazingly did not have Derek Bugard in the lineup in Dallas. I don't think that is going to be the case the next time the Wild and the Stars meet. I really don't. I mean, this is just, it got really interesting. The Wild just could not solve Marty Turco. Very, very frustrating the whole night. Of course, 40 saves for Marty Turco. I thought Brent Burns had his first goal, but instead they actually gave the goal to Guillaume Latendresse, and that ended like a one-game absence from scoring. I mean, Latendresse has been everywhere. And I also mentioned last week that the Wild don't have like a dominant goal-scoring roster. Latendresse is not a dominant super-duper star or anything, but I'm telling you, this guy, I mean, there's reason to be really excited and encouraged. This guy is at very least a major, major piece for the future for the Minnesota Wild. And it's hard to believe that things could change so dramatically from just 2 months ago. Guillaume Latendresse just pretty much buried in Montreal. Benoit Pouliot buried in the Wild. And Benoit Pouliot becomes Guillaume Latendresse. Pouliot's also doing better in Montreal. He actually is, but Latendresse, I gotta say, is better. And I got a little nickname for Guillaume Latendresse. It's nothing spectacular. Doesn't make me sound like a genius or anything, but it's not horrible, I don't think. The Lumberjack. Latendresse looks like a lumberjack. He really does, and why not? I'm going to give him that name. He just has that tough Canadian lumberjack face. He just does. He's got the beard and everything. I could totally see him in one of those, those lumberjack, those Paul Bunyan shirts. He'd look perfect. He's big and brawny, all that good stuff. Guillaume Latendresse is the lumberjack. So there you go. So if I say that name sometimes, that is who I am referring to. And Latendresse was all over the place in this game as well. He really was. He's just been such a piece for the Minnesota Wild. He really has. It's just getting crazy. What drove me nuts, though, when the Wild were trying to keep things close in that second period. Now, of course, it was 2-1, and it's like, there's still a chance. Obviously, it's just a one-goal game. But then Modano scores a 24.4 left in the game in the second period. Mike Modano scores against the Wild again. It just made me roll my eyes. As Mike Modano, we're going to get into this right now. Mike Modano has been on fire. He has been absolutely on fire. It's just been a crazy run for him. The former Minnesota North Star, of course, as Modano has scored 7 of his 13 goals this season in the past 10 games at this point, in large part because Crawford has given the 39-year-old forward days off from practice. They're saying, just go ahead and rest. You got to like that. Modano weighing in here. It's been a good stretch, said Modano, who added an assist on his 1,353 career points, tying Guy Lafleur for 24th. Wow, 24th all-time, folks. I feel like I'm getting some good looks on net, and some quality chances and shots have been finding their way through the legs of goalies. And, you got to like it for Modano anyway. Got to hate it, of course, because the Stars are arch rival, and that's our former guy. And like I said on last show, I believe it was last show, or is it 2 shows ago? I'm mixed up. I think it was last show. I mean, we just played Dallas in Dallas, ironically. Modano was not a dominant number 1 overall pick, superstar type of player, but his longevity to the team and how he's become the all-time, and his longevity in the NHL and becoming the all-time leading scorer for U.S.-born players in the National Hockey League. Yeah, I mean, it's like he's not that dominant Joe Thornton, Danny Heatley, Alex Ovechkin type of player that you expect at number 1 overall. Now, you don't necessarily expect that, but you hope for that. But at the same, and when he was a North Star, he was kind of crazy and inconsistent, a little wild. He made some mistakes, got dumb penalties, turned the puck over a lot, but he also had some big games. Never a 100-point scorer, even in an era when there was a little less defense back in the early 90s. But yeah, his longevity and everything makes up for that. And how he's stuck with the same franchise. And not only is he the all-time leading scorer for the North Stars, the Dallas Stars / North Stars, but, all-time leading scorer for all U.S.-born players. So, congrats to Mike Modano there, who, of course, again, 24th all-time. Probably a future Hall of Famer. He's even got a ring. Well, yeah, he's a future Hall of Famer. I'm an idiot to even say probably. He is. Yep, he's got a ring as well, the 99 Stanley Cup champion Dallas Stars. And watching a bunch of Hicks cheer for our former team at the time, as Wild weren't playing yet, was a little frustrating. Watching a bunch of Hicks celebrating a Stanley Cup champion pissed me off a little bit. I'll be honest with you. So there you go. There's another statement for the day. Let's move on to the game here. As Dubielewicz, of course, joins the Minnesota Wild here, and it was like immediately he had to start on Tuesday. He was the winning goalie Monday night against Abbotsford. They won 3-1. The Houston Aeros, I almost said Oilers. That's interesting. Houston Aeros win 3-1 in Abbotsford. Very, very crazy on Monday, and then he had to join the Wild on Tuesday, and of course start in net for the Dallas Stars. And Dubielewicz, not too great in the game. The Stars, the Wild, yeah, that's just going to happen a couple of times, I guess, because I am a Minnesota North Stars fan from the day. I'm not just a Wild fan. I'm not a Dallas Stars fan, but you get the idea. I mean, I'm going to get confused when these two teams play on occasion. I'm one of the older school fans, which some of you out there are. Dubielewicz weighing in, though, on the situation. As I mentioned, only faced 18 shots and gave up 14 goals. Just didn't look all too great in the game. He just didn't. So here's Dubielewicz. It's disappointing. I thought we put out a pretty good effort. We should have won the game. You double them in shots. Yeah, double them in shots. We battled hard enough where I had to come up with one more save, and I couldn't do it. That's pretty tough to swallow right now. And Todd Richards said, I thought Dubielewicz could have been better. And that's it. Boom. That's not a ringing endorsement for Wade Dubielewicz, is it?
No.
Ouch. Ouch. So that's the end of that game. It's been fun. It's been fun. It really has. It's been fun talking about it, hasn't it? Not really. Dallas Stars' dominance over the Wild has been ridiculous. It is now 12 straight victories, or 12 straight non-victories for the Wild in Dallas. Of course, there are a few shootout losses and all that crap. Yeah, it's been a winless run for the Minnesota Wild. So now we head to last night's game. And what's the cure-all for a rusty team, a rusty engine? Oil. Yep, the Edmonton Oilers come to town trying to oil this rusty machine up a little bit. And unfortunately, extremely injured Minnesota Wild goaltenders. You had Wade Dubielewicz in the previous game. Didn't work out all so great. So, Anton. I love that name. Kudobin. Or Hudobin. I don't know if it's... we'll get to it soon. They called him Kudobin in the game last night. So we'll go with that for now. He's the backup goalie for hurt Josh Harding. Not injured yet, but hurt Josh Harding. This, of course, was Thursday, February 4th, yesterday. Boy, yeah. And who would have thought? Or who knew that Anton Kudobin would have to be in net? Oh, I think all of us. You just knew something was going to happen. Kudobin would be in the net because that's the way the week has been for the Minnesota Wild and their ailing goalies. It has been a nightmare, ladies and gentlemen, a nightmare. As of course, yes, Josh Harding did injure that hip at one point in the game. We'll get to that in a second, though. The first period was pretty nondescript, to be honest. The Wild, though, pretty nondescript in the main frame of things anyway. The Wild were dominating the Edmonton Oilers in that first period and couldn't get a goal. I could not solve. I can't say his name. Because it doesn't pronounce... Well, I guess I'm going to have to go with de Jures, I guess. I mean, that's what it looks like, and I can't remember how they said it. It's something a lot different. I'll just say de Jures just to be goofy, because that's about the best I can do right now. And, I was almost experiencing some technical difficulties here with the microphone. It's like, so sorry, fans, if things sound a little bit weird, or listeners, things sound a little strange here. But a fun game for the Wild in general. As you just couldn't make it up. Josh Harding hurt again. I mean, you can't make it up. Going to continue here first, though. Robbie Earl almost had a goal early on. He was close on a couple plays. The fourth line, Havlat was with Robbie Earl on that particular part. Wild, though, again, just could not solve Jeff de Jures. That's all I'm going to call him. And his goals against average is about 3, save percentage of 90. You should be able to score on this guy. He's not that great. Luckily, the Wild do, as they did score 4 goals in the game, and the Wild went 4-2. As Havlat was able to score finally in that second period. It's like, okay, we're going to be fine, maybe. Kim Janssen shot the puck on net, and Havlat directed it in. This is early in the second period. Unfortunately, the Oilers were able to tie it up not too long after that, as that seems to always be the case of the Wild. And then it was just back and forth in that second period. It was kind of a grinded out second period, only 7 shots on goal per team. And it's like you start wondering, why is it 1-1 against the Edmonton Oilers? I mean, that's all you hear about is how bad the Oilers are, how they're like a team that is just in complete disarray. They screwed up trade after trade after trade they made, move after move. They just screwed up everything. Yet, we're tied 1-1 at home against the Edmonton Oilers. What the hell? This is complete, utter BS. Complete, utter BS. Just, what the heck? What was amazing also, the Wild dominated in the faceoffs. Now, before that, Miettinen, they dominated in the faceoffs. Miettinen, thank God for Antti-Miettinen. TGF Antti-Miettinen. Minnesota Wild up 2-1 at this point. Pretty early in that first period, but then Mark Puglia, another Puglia, ties it up again. As, of course, first, though, the Miettinen, that was the classic first line, Miettinen, Koivu, Brunette, all together there. Miettinen always looked as kind of a third-line player, but fits in great with Koivu and Brunette, and there you go. And Miettinen, of course, been on fire. We're going to get into that in a sec at the end. He has just been on fire for quite a while now, and exactly 5 minutes later, Edmonton ties it up again, and it's like, this has got to stop. This has got to stop. Harding was already starting to show a little bit of wear and tear, per se, at this point. Stortini, I like saying that name, assisting on the play. He got the puck on net, and Puglia was able to push it in a kind of a scramble. That's when Harding really started to show he was in pain. Then, of course, Harding makes a great save as he was getting hurt, literally, as he was getting hurt, and that was it. The guy could hardly move. The guy was basically just like a statue. He couldn't even move. That's what happens when your hip is hurt. And it didn't look good at all. Kudobin. Anton Kudobin is now the goalie for the Minnesota Wild in a 2-2 game against the Edmonton Oilers. A game we cannot afford to lose. You cannot lose a home game against the Edmonton Oilers. And Anton Kudobin is now the goalie, regardless if you like it or not. Going to be real interesting. Kudobin acknowledged feeling a little nervous at the start of his sudden NHL debut. It's pretty tough, but what can you do? As Kudobin was awarded his first victory, he stopped 9 shots in less than 10 minutes. It's your job. You have to do it. That's what he said. Kudobin continues. Everybody came to me and just said, relax, play your game. He was called up from Houston just before the game. Again, another deal where he was called up from Houston just before the game. And here he is. I just said to myself, I have to stop the first shot and I'll be okay after that. Well, pretty much. Todd Richards weighs in now as he looked confident and ready to go. Those young kids, when you get your opportunity, you're always thinking about succeeding. And luckily the Wild absolutely did succeed in this game. Because Guillaume Latendresse to the rescue on just a beautiful play. Him and Havlat, if there was any doubt at how great the chemistry is between Havlat and Latendresse, the goal that would become the game winner, it was just a beautiful thing. I mean, that's the future of the Wild right there, at least a big part of it. Havlat and Latendresse, and the way they just look like they're having a blast out there. I mean, they're having a blast. Latendresse and Martin Havlat. It is just a fun thing to watch, folks. Absolutely fun to watch. Just the look in their eye. Kyle Brodziak officially getting the assist there. And then Havlat and Latendresse bury it, and they look like they're having even more fun. The game was buried in Kudobin making those 9 saves. And in the meantime, Martin Havlat and Latendresse go on the break. The give and go, folks. Latendresse had the puck, or Havlat had the puck, gets it to Latendresse. Back and forth a few times. Latendresse just, instead of taking the shot, just a pretty pass over to Havlat, who buried it for his 13th of the year and absolutely loved it. With about 2 minutes and 30 seconds left in the game, you knew the Wild won. I mean, it's a 2-point lead against the Edmonton Oilers. And the Wild do solve de jure. I'm just going to call him that. Forgive me again, folks. And, boy, that was a fun finish. It's like, and yeah, this is a cure-all type of game, and the Wild needed it in the worst way. Unfortunately, it doesn't mean the Wild goaltending situation is a cure-all. It really doesn't, and it doesn't mean that Josh Harding's hip is suddenly going to get better because the Wild beat the Edmonton Oilers. That didn't look good, and now the question is, how long will Josh Harding be out? It didn't look pretty good. It just didn't look good. It just got much worse. A lot of people saying the Wild probably should have pulled Harding earlier before it did get worse, before a bad went to worse. So now let's go to the face-off category. The Wild were winning 35-13 with 12 minutes left in the third period, in the game in general. And it's like, why are we tied with the Edmonton Oilers? We're beating them in every category. Yeah, we just can't seem to bury shots in this guy who's really, the numbers don't indicate he's that great of a goalie. Edmonton, of course, and Minnesota getting tons of shots on goal in this third period. And luckily the Wild hold on for dear life. And they bury the shots that they got later in the game. But yeah, the Wild won 45-17 in the face-off category. It got even crazier after that. Yeah, another 10-3 after that. after that in that final 12 minutes in the face-off category. 45-17. That is amazing. Just amazing. And, yeah, you got to feel good for Kudobin. He's just getting started, as they say. Looking pretty good is Kudobin. Nothing major, not any major scrums to mention in this game. Mostly that Steve Ott and Cal Clutterbuck are the most interesting ones in the game in general. There's always going to be some scrums, but there was nothing really crazy. So now we'll continue to have some final notes here as the Wild have outscored the Edmonton Oilers 43-14 during this home winning streak. 43-14 during the home winning streak for the Wild. It's just, that's crazy. Over the Oilers, that is. Their last loss to Edmonton at home was more than 3 years ago. Yeah, more than 3 years ago. Antti Miettinen has at least one goal in 7 of his last 9 games for the Wild. That's how on fire Antti Miettinen is. And Richards on Harding, well, we'll talk to the doctors and find out what's going on. He had to have been hurting pretty bad seeing him come off the ice. And, yeah, that just did not look good at all. It really didn't. As the Wild now reside in the 12th seed in the Western Conference, still a logjam, but a lot of people believe, and I tend to agree, if the Wild are going to make trades, I would think they'd want to lean towards the seller category, not the buyer category, unless there's like a can't-miss super young, unless there's a can't-miss young stud heading this way, like Kovalchuk. If that could have happened, that would have been great. But if you're going to try to get some 35, 37-year-old guy to help you try to get the 8th seed, well, what's the point? What's the point? And then give up some prospects? Isn't that the opposite thing the Minnesota Wild want to do? The Houston Aeros farm is not too big yet. It's just, it's still as bare as it ever was. It's still as bare as it ever was, with a few encouraging signs starting to trickle through. That's about it, though. The 12th seed for the Wild with 60 points. San Jose with 83. I believe they lead the NHL. And no, Washington now has a 1-point lead over San Jose for the entire NHL. Well, wouldn't that be an epic Stanley Cup Finals? The Washington Capitals against the San Jose Sharks, or even the Chicago Blackhawks. Yeah, number 2 seed in the West. Who knows? It's going to be pretty interesting indeed. As now I did mention the Houston Aeros. We're going to segue to them real quick. One encouraging thing of note is it appears that Colton Gillies, Peter Kalis, and Danny Ehrman are starting to figure it out a little bit in Houston as they're finally starting to step up. Even Cody Allman with, shucks, he had about 5 points last week. Cody Allman had about 5 points last week. Gillies had 3. Danny Ehrman had 3 points last week. And Peter Kalis had 2 points. So that's very encouraging for the Wild in those terms. Those guys, all pieces of the Wild's farm. Now, Peter Kalis isn't this big-name stud or anything, but, hey, he's still at least he stuck around and he didn't go back to Europe. So that's one encouraging place there, and he's finally starting to break through. Cody Allman looked on as one of the hotter prospects for the Minnesota Wild, believe it or not. And, of course, Colton Gillies is a number 1 pick for the Wild just 2 years ago. Pretty invisible all of last year with the Wild, as I mentioned, and pretty invisible with the Houston Oilers. It's like, what the hell? Is this guy going to be good at any level, or did we just flat waste a pick? And did we trade up to get a guy who's not even that good? Well, we'll find out. We'll find out with Colton Gillies. He's starting to show a few signs there in Houston, though, which is nice. And as I mentioned, Danny Ehrman moving up a bit with those Houston Oilers. He's been moving up, and it's an encouraging sign as the guy has been virtually invisible with the Houston Oilers the last 2.5 years. So good to see there. Hope that maybe there is some food in the cupboard yet for the Minnesota Wild down in Houston. As we'll only find out, we'll find out in the next couple of months here, couple of weeks, depending on if there's injuries. One of those guys might come up. Will they stick around? Well, Clayton Stoner probably had a pretty good chance of sticking around. A guy I'd been watching for a while, and he'd been in the Wild system for about 5 years or so. Nice little defenseman. Every year on the Houston Oilers did a good job, got a little bit better. Houston Aeros, I knew I was going to say it, did a good job and got a little bit better each year. Finally came up to the Wild this year and got hurt after 10 games. Just what a bummer. What a bummer. He definitely provided some energy. So you hope that Colton Gillies, Clayton Stoner. Yeah, I'm getting those guys mixed up now. Even better. Clayton Stoner can get healthy and rejoin the Wild at some point in time. Some point in a XL Energy Center near you, as the Wild will have a nice little homestand here. You got Philadelphia Flyers. Yes, that's right, the Philadelphia Flyers tomorrow night in the X, of course, and then you got 3 more home games, all home games before the Olympic break comes up, and they're all games that are winnable and need to be won, of course. You need to beat Philadelphia, obviously. You hope you can, but they're a bad matchup for the Wild. Phoenix has been a bad matchup the last year and a half, but it's a home game, and the Wild need to take care of business. If they can't beat the Atlanta Thrashers next Friday, that's going to really piss me off. So it's looking like I'm going to be reviewing 2 games next week, maybe 3 if I decide to hold it out. But I think I'm going to leave it at 2, so then I could have 2 for the next show. That makes more sense before the Olympic break comes in, because there will be no Brave the Wild during the Olympic break. There's no reason to, unless some major trade happens. I don't think it's going to happen. That'd be kind of weird. So yeah, we'll be reviewing the Phoenix Coyotes, the Wednesday game, and of course the Saturday game. Saturday game tomorrow. Philadelphia and Phoenix, and the next week, of course, Atlanta and Vancouver. That's a game the Wild, well, you hope they can win that, but if they can't, they can't, I guess. All very winnable, though, because the Wild are 19-6 at home, which is just an awesome record. Got to take care of business. But as I mentioned, though, during that 2-week span, there will be no Brave the Wild for 2 weeks, because there'll be no reason to do a show unless something very interesting does happen, like some major news of the Wild breaks. Be the only reason I do a show. So that's a heads up. But we have 2 more shows to go until that happens. So there you go. Got to win these games. Hopefully the Wild can capitalize here and go 4-1 or something. That'd be great. That'd be great. I mean, if the Wild make the playoffs without having to give away some prospects and maybe even sell a guy and gain some prospects, that'd be terrific. That'd be fine with me. Otherwise, hey, I wouldn't be surprised if Owen Nolan is traded at some point, because he's an older guy and would be a nice addition for a playoff team. He just would. But we shall see indeed, as the NHL trade deadline isn't until early March. So I'd like you guys to please call into the voice line. 209-736-7877. 209-736-7877 would be deeply appreciated. Mention you're calling in for Brave the Wild. Opine and leave your name and town in Opine. You get the idea. Would be terrific. Whatever you want to say, make a joke, whatever, as long as it's somewhat relevant to the show, I'd appreciate it. Also, please do sign up for the message boards on the sportstuff.com. There's a button that says TSS Boards in the upper right-hand corner of the website. Click on that, and then simply click on register, and you will be a part of the website, thesportstuff.com, and we can talk some hockey on those message boards. It would be terrific. So, show a little bit longer today. Just kind of wanted to get more into detail in the games, because that's pretty much all I had to do news this particular show. The news happened during the games, not after the games or off the ice or anything. No off the ice news this week. Just nothing going on. No trade rumors. Oh, and the one final note, Dion Phaneuf traded from the Calgary Flames, who, of course, second favorite team, I guess, and I think some of you out there that listen to Calgary Puck Radio, which is a fantastic show, might be listening. Wow, why did they trade Dion Phaneuf for what they got back in return? Didn't make much sense. I mean, nobody really there was young. It was mostly a depth cap space move, I guess. I just a little confused at that. Trading Olli Jokinen, that was a good move to the Rangers. Olli Jokinen's done. To get anything back for, I'm sure that was a good move for the Calgary Flames. So I just thought I'd throw that in. Those are the trades that took place this week, other than the Kovalchuk trade. Yeah. So the trading frenzy has begun. When will the Wild join, and who will be traded? That is the million-dollar question. I don't think Josh Harding's going to get traded, folks. There's a small, tiny possibility that Backstrom might at some point in time. Maybe not this year, maybe next year, because of the salary cap. You got to have space to sign players in the NHL because the salary cap exists now in the NHL. And, of course, it's getting smaller, not bigger, smaller. That means players are going to get squeezed, folks, and teams are going to get squeezed. And that's going to be very interesting indeed. Very interesting. All thanks to the economy and the Federal Reserve and the crappy bankers out there that like to kill our economy and push us around. So we're going to leave that alone. Thank you always for listening, and do take care, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.